and the monthly meeting of the committee to be held remotely today, Tuesday, 4th of January at 4 o'clock. Happy New Year, members, and to start as always with the roll call. Alderman Breslin.
Here, John.
Alderman Devaney.
Here, John.
Alderman McClintock.
Here, John.
Alderman McCready. Alderman McCready. Councillor John Boyle. Councillor John Boyle. Councillor Donnelly.
And Shaw.
Councillor Doyle.
Here, John.
Councillor Duffy.
And Shaw.
Councillor Farrell.
Here.
Councillor Fleming.
And Shaw, John.
Councillor Heaney.
Shaw, John.
Councillor McHugh.
Shaw, John.
Councillor Mooney.
Here, John.
And Councillor Riley.
Here, John, and I see in the chat box Councillor Boyle, John Boyle, has indicated that he is here, but he just couldn't unmute when you called his name. Members, moving on to the broadcast statement, but before you do, just as with the Chief Executive, just want to wish everybody a very happy New Year, and I hope that Christmas was a nice, peaceful break for everyone, and just good luck to everybody on the call, all elected members, all council officers, and indeed any members of the public watching. I hope you all have a very healthy and prosperous 2022. So moving on to the broadcast statement, I would like to remind everyone here who is in remote attendance that this meeting will be broadcast live via the Council's YouTube channel and will be available for viewing by the public and media. The broadcast will also be available for repeated viewing at a later date. This broadcast may be terminated or suspended in accordance with Council protocol. Members and approved speakers are reminded to only have their mics and cameras on while speaking at the meeting and to use the chat facility to highlight a request to speak. By participating in this meeting, you are consenting to be filmed and also to the use and storage of those images for broadcasting or training purposes and for the purpose of keeping historical records and making those records available to the public. A copy of the Council's privacy notice may be found on the Council website, www.derrystrabane.com. Members, moving on to item 4, which is the declarations of members' interests. So any person that has a declaration, please do so verbally so that members of the public can be aware of your declaration. And I'm not seeing any declarations of interest, so I'm going to move on to item 5 of today's agenda, which is the deputation, and that's to receive Miss A. McGrath, Commissioner for Valuation, and Mr. G. Humphrey, the Project Manager for Reval 2023, to brief us on the presentation which has been attached and circulated. So I'm going to hand over to the representatives to see if they want to proceed now. Not sure who's going to go first, so happy to hand over the floor to our deputation.
Chair, I have just contacted the Department of Finance and spoke to their office. Angela is just trying to get in at the minute, and spoke to her PA. Her and Gary are currently trying to connect. So I'm afraid they're not just online at this present moment in time. They were told to be here for 4, so apologies.
No
they're just currently trying to connect.
No problem, Rachel, that's fine. We'll move on and then come back to them when they're connected, if that's okay. I'm sure they'll probably be able to join us shortly. So we'll move to chairperson's business now at this stage, and then I'll come back to item 5 in due course. Members, there's just a couple of items of chairperson's business that I want to raise, as well as obviously wishing good New Year wishes to everyone. Over the Christmas period, we did have a number of bereavements that I need to record. There was the death of Don Wilmot, who many of us will know from his time as chairperson of Visit Derry, but Don also was a founder member of the Northern Ireland Tourism Alliance and spent many years passionately advocating for tourism across Northern Ireland, and also promoted the promotion of our city and district in his role as chairperson of Visit Derry. So I think it's appropriate that the council record condolences to his family at this sad time. And attached with that also, there was the unfortunate road traffic accident along the A5 in which 3 young men lost their lives over the Christmas period. I think across this council chamber we all know the value of the upgraded A5 and the importance of that key strategic road project, but it was noted by myself and indeed by many others about the commentary of Father Michael O'Dwyer at the funeral of one of those young men, where he spoke about how the communities in Garva, in Barra and Clogher had a dark cloud hanging over them, and how the importance of getting that piece of road infrastructure upgraded can't happen soon enough in order to protect the lives of everyone who uses it on a daily basis, or indeed who just use it infrequently. It's an important piece of infrastructure that needs to be delivered, and hopefully this year, as we start 2022, we will see the public inquiry complete its piece of work that will allow the scheme to advance. Members, I've also been contacted by one elected representative who wishes to come in under chairperson's business, so that's Alderman Maurice Devaney. So I'm going to hand over to Maurice now. Go ahead, Alderman Devaney.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in, and I just can agree with your sentiments and wishing everyone a happy new year as we move into the new year. And I would sympathise with the family of Dawn and the young men who lost their lives on the A5, or sympathy. Our party sends our sympathy out to those who have been bereaved at this time, and I think you're right, Chair. It is time that we take a sensible approach on upgrading the A5. We've been calling for this for many years, and look, we hope the Infrastructure Minister will take this on board and deliver the project. But Chair, thank you for allowing me in under Chairperson's business, and I just wanted to raise the issue about online abuse and the vile comments that have been targeted at my colleague Diane Dodds, MLA, just over the holiday period. These comments were mocking the death of their son. And for those who maybe don't know Diane and the family, they had a son called Andrew who passed away in '98. He was only aged 8 years of age. And look, we all know he had been diagnosed with spina bifida. And look, he was a much loved and cherished young boy within the family and the family circle. And these people who target these online abuse, many are unknown and known as trolls. And to me, Chair, they're just spineless, vile people that can hide behind a keyboard. We call them keyboard warriors. And they hide behind a cloak of anonymity. No one, it's difficult to find out who they are. And we all know the conversation at the minute that Twitter has stated that it didn't breach its standards, but we do appreciate that the PSNI are carrying out an investigation. And, we as politicians, we take online abuse, but, a lot of the times we just take it on the chin, as they say. But there are many others out there, Chair, who are being targeted by online abuse, along with Diane and many others. They're being targeted, and many of them feel that they don't have any support. And I believe, Chair, at the moment, I believe we as a committee and a council should send out a very strong message of support for these family, the Dodds family and others who have been subjected to online abuse. We should be calling for changes in the law, that there are no facility for anonymity online. Online providers should be scrutinising their platforms more often. And Chair, and the other I would like to say is, I know my colleague Carla Lockhart, who has long championed verification of all social media accounts, and I know Carla is hoping to meet with those from Twitter this week and members from the government as well to raise the issue and push for more online, the online safety bill, and a lot more needs to be done to address that, Chair. And I'm just wondering, Chair, would you allow me to make a proposal? And look, it'll be very, very simple. That I propose that we write to Twitter calling for improved scrutiny of online accounts, and we write to the Department of Justice Minister to explore a change in the law to ban anonymous accounts online. Because I think, Chair, that is part and parcel of the problem. And a lot of these online abuse cases and these platforms, there isn't enough of scrutiny in around there. and I believe the boundaries have been breached many, many times, but they do nothing about it. And I have to say, you know, and I do believe the law needs to be changed and around that as well, Chair, and a piece of work needs to be done to ensure that you know, these people who go on anonymous cannot get online. And you know, it's very simple for the rest of us when we sign online, whether it be Twitter or whatever it is, or Facebook. You know, we give our details, and we're very, very happy to do that, because look, we hopefully will not be abusing people. And I would say, Chair, that would be a proposal from myself, if you would allow it, Chair. And I think it's timely that we show our support for all people who are targeted by online abuse. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, Morris, thank you for that. I note your proposal has been called out. If you'd be kind enough to put it into the chat box so that the committee section can put it up on the screen for everyone to see.
They have it, Chair.
Okay, that's very helpful. Yeah, thank you for that, Morris. I see it's been seconded in the chat box by Alderman McClintock, and then there's a number of indicated speakers on that. I note also Councillor McHugh, Rory wishes to speak on the A5, so I'll bring you in due course, Rory, but we'll deal with this item first, if that's okay. So Councillor Boyle is first on the line to speak in relation to this proposal. John, do you want to go ahead whenever it comes up on the screen?
Yep, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Martin. And thanks to Alderman Devaney for bringing up what currently seems like a hot topic, but it's been a long-standing issue and an area of major concern, certainly for my party. And I can speak on behalf of the SDLP in relation to the proposal in front of us, and we have absolutely no difficulty in supporting it. I saw the tweet which was referenced to the Dodds family and to Diane in particular. Again, just want to reiterate our support for Diane Dodds and indeed Nigel and their family. Quite frankly, that particular tweet was repugnant. It bordered on sociopathic. In fact, it probably was sociopathic. The very lack of empathy, the total lack of sympathy, quite astounding. Given the subject matter, I wouldn't want to give it any more oxygen, and I certainly wouldn't repeat what was said in that particular tweet. But I've seen so many thousands examples of this, and as Alderman Devaney's already pointed out, there are many hundreds of thousands of people across our country and indeed globally who are abused on a daily basis, who are threatened on a daily basis, and who are insulted on a daily basis. It's very evident that social media platforms, not only Twitter but others, need to take a better grip on these particular matters, and the area of anonymity is clearly the loophole that is being abused. And I'm certainly no internet expert, but I don't believe that it's beyond these multi-billion-pound companies to come up with solutions to tackle this particular problem. You know, what is the necessity for anonymity? That's clearly been used to abuse, and quite frankly, if that opportunity wasn't provided for people, then perhaps we wouldn't see the intemperate, for want of a better way of putting it, the intemperate type of languages and commentary that's used. And I suppose in a very sense, you know, a lot of people say things on social media that quite frankly they wouldn't say to anyone's faces, and it's because they can hide behind the cloak of anonymity, and like all trolls, they will hide underneath the bridge and come out to use that opportunity to abuse. And again, disgraceful comments in this particular instance, but I could probably draw up a very, very long list of people who are known to everybody in this committee and on this council who have suffered similar levels of abuse. And it really is beyond time that we took a stand in these particular matters. And of course, we are supportive of writing not only to Twitter, but we maybe might consider extending that out to other social media companies that we could identify who could address the particular problems. I don't want to be prescriptive around it. If Alderman Devaney in this instance wants to write to Twitter, that's fine, but certainly the Department of Justice here does need to take cognizance of the strength of feeling and the concerns that exist around this kind of activity. So again, thank you to Alderman Devaney, Alderman McClintock for seconding. Certainly would have had she not done so. I would have seconded this, but I think that'll suffice for now. That's our opinion in a nutshell. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, John, thank you for that, Councillor Boyle. Next indicated speaker was Councillor Sandra Duffy. Go ahead, Sandra.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in, and just to begin by wishing everybody Happy New Year, as you had previously said, and offer my condolences as well to everyone who has lost a loved one over the Christmas period. I know it can be particularly hard to lose a loved one during that period when you think that everybody else is in joyful mode, but no, so just want to add my condolences there. But just in relation to this, thanks to Alderman Devaney for bringing it forward. Absolutely agree with him. I did see the tweet and it was absolutely despicable. I would agree with absolutely everything that has been said by him and by Councillor Boyle there in terms of the vitriol and abuse that is out there in terms of these anonymous accounts that feel free to say what they like when they like, without fear of any sort of repercussions onto themselves. I know I have previously been on the media in terms of discussing this because I have also been a target of some hate at times. And in fact, coming up to the last election in 2019, I had to advise my parents, my elderly parents, not to be reading stuff on social media because it upset them so much. So absolutely no problem in supporting the proposal as it stands. Would support Councillor Boyle's addendum in terms of writing to all social media providers, because it's not just Twitter that we see this abuse and these anonymous accounts. I do think that there is a better way that these social media providers can police this. You know, there is ways that they can verify accounts so that they can be tracked by the police or by whoever when they do overstep the mark, and they do overstep the mark quite regularly, because I've seen it in terms of my own party colleagues as well, who have been abused over many years now, without any sort of comment. So absolutely agree with the sentiments of the proposal, and the tweet was absolutely despicable. So I absolutely send our thoughts to the Dodds family at the time, because it was terrible. So happy to support. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Sandra. Alderman McClintock, are you happy just to second it, the chat box, or do you want to speak to it as well?
No, I'm happy just to go with it, just to second it. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Hilary. Next indicated speaker is Councillor Donnelly. Gary.
There, thank you. And look, I haven't seen the tweet, and I probably don't want to see the tweet, because I think there's absolutely no excuse in this world to carry out that type of behaviour. It's despicable, and why anybody would use the death of a young child in order to try and get at the parents of politics or whatever reason is completely and utterly wrong. Like Councillor Duffy, I do believe that it's not resigned solely to Twitter. I myself, after an attack on my home, was subject to my family details was put on Facebook and shared widely. And like Councillor Duffy, at one stage I had to talk to my children about the delude of abuse that was happening. And again, it's not just it's not just Twitter and Facebook. Some of these newspapers and their comments, departments on it, are absolutely full of hate. And this particularly manifests itself when somebody passes away of political significance. The amount of hate, and it's on all sides here, and the amount of gloating is absolutely really despicable. But I'm not sure, Chair, and this is not to delude or try and take away from what's happened, I'm not sure if banning anonymous accounts is the answer here. There is, most anonymous accounts are people who do behave themselves and operate, in a respectful way. I would prefer, that if Twitter and social media would make their anonymous accounts more accountable, rather than ban them totally. So perhaps maybe I could put an amendment to this, because I'm not sure just a blanket ban on all anonymous accounts is the way forward here.
Okay, Councillor Donnelly, well, if you want to make an amendment to it, then I'm happy for you to do that in terms of putting it into the chat box and then see how you get on in terms of attracting a seconder for it. So if you're in the process of wanting to type up an amendment, then go ahead and do that and put it in the chat box. And in the meantime, if Councillor Harkin's ready, I can take you now, Sean.
Thank you, Chair, and like everyone else, I wish you all a happy new year. I hope that this is a better year than last one, and I hope for individuals it's a good year as well. And yeah, look, I agree with the mover of the motion that comments made to MLA Diane Dodds were unacceptable. And that this is obviously something that many people face now who are in public life. And people often hide behind anonymous accounts and say stuff that goes way beyond what you would call robust debate. And I do think we're right to condemn it from all sides. It's not acceptable when people are targeted for things, for children's death and things like that. It's sick and unacceptable. I would be reticent, though, to support a call for a ban on all anonymous accounts. I mean, if you look at the social media world, there's disgusting things that are said by people who are not anonymous. There's been a lot of studies done about the difference between public accounts that are known and anonymous accounts, and I think you'll find that like people behind the keyboard, as has been said, are willing to say things that are maybe a lot nastier than they'd be willing to say in person, and that this has been a free-for-all somewhat. So there can be a lot of problems with public accounts as well, in terms of trolling people, targeting people, abusing people, and abusing people in all sorts of ways, whether it's racism, sectarianism, LGBT hate. There's a long list in terms of how people are abused online, and sometimes publicly and sometimes by anonymous accounts. In terms of anonymous accounts, I mean, if we think this through, banning, some people use anonymous accounts for positive reasons, like whistleblowing. You think about the Me Too movement, you think about all sorts of campaigns and issues that people had actual fear of speaking out publicly, and that's an important resource. You think about the privilege that politicians and others maybe have, or to be able to speak to newspapers anonymously, and that's something that an ordinary person doesn't necessarily have. So while I agree there's very serious problems to the way that social media operates, and these are big, huge, profitable companies who allow all sorts of things to happen that is counterproductive on people's relationships and can encourage and facilitate this kind of abuse. I think we have to have a more wide-ranging discussion about how we around how we challenge it. I don't think banning anonymous accounts is going to be the way to do that. I do think we can send a strong message from the council about the abuse that Diane Dodds has faced, and that's an important thing for us to do, as if we collectively from all sides say that this is an unacceptable way for people to participate in society. It's an unacceptable way to target anybody, any politician. I think that will deliver a very strong message, and in some ways that's going to be the strongest way for us to do this. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that, Sean. That's all the indicated speakers I have at this stage. I see Councillor Donnelly's suggested amendment is on the screen in front of us. Thanks to Nuala for putting that up. Is there a seconder for Gary's amendment?
Chair, I would be actually happy to second it in terms of what Councillor Donnelly was saying. in relation to, there is a lot of anonymous accounts that don't perpetrate abuse. There could be there for legitimate reasons in terms of whistleblowing. So in terms of a blanket ban on anonymous accounts, maybe that's not the way to go. But I do think that there is ways of making accounts which are anonymous more accountable and ensuring that they are traceable. So I would be happy enough to second it.
Okay, thanks for that, Sandra. Councillor Doyle, go ahead, Anna.
Thanks, Chair. Happy New Year to everybody. I have no issue with the original or amended motion, and I do think that, you know, there are plenty of public accounts out there that are actively engaged in what would reasonably be described as trolling as well. Indeed, I saw a social media post from so-called Alliance for Choice last week, who actually advertised as part of their activities that they trolled. They invited people to troll pro-life activists, which doesn't surprise me. But I do think as well that there is obviously a responsibility on ourselves as local representatives, and, you know, for those of us who are members of parties, to ensure that our members also don't engage in trolling, because I can remember back to many instances where people who were of certain political persuasion were able to troll en masse, people like Maria Cahill. And I think that that's important to be noted as well. It's not just these faceless people who go about trolling, and we have to be cognizant of that. I did see the tweet and I thought it was absolutely disgusting, but unfortunately, I also saw a comment yesterday that just summed Twitter up, and it is becoming a bit of a sewer, because people can just generally go on and absolutely hammer people for absolutely no reason, and have, you know, for those people who don't necessarily have the pardon me, the resources of you know, people like Gregory Campbell or Stephen Nolan to go after people and take them to court. You know, it can be a very dark place when you're on the receiving end of some of this abuse, even if you're not, as Sean said, in public life. So I've absolutely no problem with the motion, but I think we should also be sending the general message out that trolling people in general is, you know, people need to snap out of it and wise up a bit. If that's what they want to spend their time doing, they really should look at their lives. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Amit, for that. Back to Alderman Devaney. Morris, you wanted to come in again? Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in. And look, I do agree with the sentiments on Twitter and around to make the accounts or those accounts, anonymous accounts, more accountable. But I do believe, Chair, that we need the Department of Justice here, because we need changes in the law and around these issues. So we do, and that's why I have had in the Department of Justice. But look, I'm happy enough with what Councillor Donnelly, but I'm not happy with, I can't support it on the line that we've taken out the Department of Justice, because they are the people that we need to get the message to see what they can do to facilitate it as well. Because look, we as a council can do very little, and a letter coming from the council to Twitter, we've said it before, they go to these big organisations, probably end up in a bin somewhere. But I do believe, Chair, that I think we need to get in something there that we write to the Department of Justice as well, to get that message across to the Department of Justice, you know, that they can look at ways of maybe, and maybe the word was too strong, to ban anonymous accounts, but, you know, to make accounts more, those anonymous accounts more accountable, maybe a better choice of wording, Chair. But I wouldn't be happy that we've left out completely the Department of Justice, because I think they have a vital role to play in dealing with this, coming from us as a council as well, leading, you know, for those people who have been abused by online abuse. It gives it more teeth in our part, Chair.
Thanks, Alderman Devaney. Members, we have an amendment on the floor then that we need to deal with before we can move to the wider vote on the substantive motion. So in relation to the amendment that's on the screen, Councillor Donnelly, you're happy enough with that, that amendment in red reflects your suggested amendment, is that right? Before
That's
we
right,
move to-
Chair. Yeah, it's covered
Oh.
that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I'm not seeing in the chat box any other indicator speakers in relation to the amendment. So I'm going to move to taking a vote on the amendment. If anybody wants to speak to the amendment, then do so now, or are we happy to take the amendment as accepted? I know Alderman Devaney, you had expressed concerns about taking out the Department of Justice line, so
Chair, we would be abstaining on this because, as I said earlier on, we believe that we need the Department of Justice on there to lead on that. But look, if this, I don't know, is now the right time to put in an added amendment or wait till this one is dealt with, because I believe it's vitally important that, look, we could change the wording in around, you know, if we write to the Department of Justice Minister to explore a change in the law to make more anonymous accounts more accountable. If Councillor Donnelly was happy with that.
Well, we have to take the amendments
Yep.
one at a time. So
Okay.
the amendment that's on the screen now is the one we have to go with. I've checked with Councillor Donnelly, and he's content that that's his amendment as on the screen. So
we would be abstaining, Chair, just on the issue of the Department. While we support the sentiments, it's just because the Department of Justice isn't included in it.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Well, I'm going to hand over to the Chief Executive then, just to take us through a vote on the amendment in the first instance, please, John.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Alderman Bresland.
Against.
Alderman Devaney.
Against.
Alderman McClintock.
Against.
Councillor John Boyle.
For.
Councillor Donnelly.
For.
Councillor Doyle.
For.
Councillor Duffy.
For.
Councillor Farrell.
For.
Councillor Fleming.
For John.
Councillor Heaney.
For John.
Councillor McHugh.
For.
Councillor Mooney.
For.
Councillor Riley.
Or
Thank you, members. Chair, I've recorded 10 for and 3 against, so the amendment is carried.
okay. Thank you for that, Chief Executive.
Chair, could I put in an amendment now?
Yes, Alderman Devaney, you can table another amendment, and then we'll I'll wait for you to put it into the chat box, and then we'll discuss
I'll
it
make
when we
it
see
very,
it.
very simple. It's just an add-on to what's in red there. You know, and we write to the Department of Justice Minister to explore a change in the law to make anonymous accounts more accountable, and that includes the Department of Justice end for me.
Okay.
Just in the change the law to make anonymous accounts more accountable.
Okay. Well, if you just bear with us, we need to get that then put on to the screen so that people can deal with it. So I'll let Nuala do some homework on the now passed amendment, and then we can you can, in the point Nuala's doing that, Alderman Devaney, if you can put your further amendment into the chat box so that she can put it onto the screen.
Chair, do you want me to write the whole thing on the screen or just the ending that I want to change from the previous one? Because Nuala might be quicker than me.
Just waiting for Nuala just to finish. If she can, I'm sure Nuala will put into black then the amendment that's been passed, and then you can then try to move an amendment once she has done that, Marsh. So just bear with us a moment. Okay, so Nuala's put it into black there in the middle of the amended motion that that has been carried. So Alderman Devaney, do you want to make a further amendment now to what's on the screen?
I do. If Nuala would just put up and we write anonymous accounts more accountable, and we write to the Department of Justice Minister just what we had up before, and just where we said ban, we would just change a few words. If Nuala would put it up, the original other one, and take a few words out, I'll be quicker than me.
Yeah, I think that my first reaction on that, and I know Councillor Donnelly is indicating he wants to speak as well, it would be Councillor or Alderman Devaney that would be reinserting the part of the amendment that was deleted out by the vote that's just happened. I'm happy to get some clarity from council officers on that, but before bringing in John or Philip, the city solicitor, on that, happy to hear from Councillor Donnelly, who has indicated he wishes to speak. So go ahead, Gary.
No, good, Chair. Chair, look, again, I'm trying to, I don't want this to go all messy or all over the place, because what the sentiment that we're trying to get across here is that what happened, Diane Dodds is simply not acceptable. But I'm just not sure what changes of the law needs to happen. I'm not sure what the law is at the minute, but I think the onus here is down to Twitter to make their system more accountable. I've no doubt there's rules that are already there. There's laws that there that make what was said a hate crime and punishable. So I just think that this is sort of making it a bit messier. I think that the onus here should be on Twitter or whatever social media venues that is permitting this to happen or not acting quick enough. So I don't think that for me, I don't see the amendment as serving any purpose. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Gary.
Could we just have a legal advice on it, Chair, and that will clear my mind up then?
Yep, no, that's fine. I was going to ask for city solicitor's ruling on the subject of your second amendment. So if the city solicitor's on the line, if you can answer Morris's point, please.
Chair, I understood from what Nuala was putting up originally and from what was being discussed that it was simply going to be after the words Twitter, that we were going to insert the words "and the Department of Justice." I don't think the amendment prohibited, an amendment could prohibit writing anything to the Department of Justice. So if it's simply that amendment, then I think that would be in order.
Okay, thanks for that, Philip. So, Alderman Devaney, are you content with Philip's advice then? And if so, are you happy to put that
amendment? I'm happy to put that amendment forward. Yep.
Okay. Well, we'll let Nuala put that on the screen. Yep. In the meantime, is there a seconder for your amendment, Morris?
I'll second, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Hilary.
And Chair, it's just there to explore a change in the law and to ban changes in the law to make anonymous accounts more accountable.
Okay, well, let Nuala put that up on the screen, and then you can correct it, Morris, if you need to.
And Chair, I just want to say, I don't want to make this messy, but I still believe that the Department of Justice have a huge role to play in this, getting this argument across to Twitter and to the rest of the social media platforms.
Okay. Just let Nuala finish putting her handiwork skills to good use in relation to the amendment, and then we'll proceed to take comments on the amendment. Okay, so Nuala has that on the screen. So again, open it up to any further commentary on the amendment, and if not, then we'll move to a vote on the amendment that's now in front of us. So I'm giving it a few moments, but I'm not seeing any other indicated speakers coming forward. So I'm happy to go to the chat. Okay, chat box indicates Councillor John Boyle. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'll keep it brief. I welcome the inclusion, as do my colleagues, again, of the necessity of writing to the Department of Justice to explore changes in the law in relation to anonymous accounts and making all of this much more accountable. Other speakers are quite correct, of course. Not everybody hides behind the cloak of anonymity, and some people actually have the gall to still carry on the way that they feel they can without any censure. But that, again, is something that would be up to the social media companies. But let's face it, Twitter can't change the law, Facebook can't change the law, and none of these social media or companies can change the law. That is down to legislatures, and the Department of Justice and this legislature are the people who have the vires to do that. So we are entirely supportive of the amendment on this particular occasion as well. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thanks, John, for that. Alderman McClintock, go ahead, Hilary.
Thank you, Chair. Just to let my support to the amendment, I think that it's fine us writing to Twitter, but we really need to give this some chance of going somewhere. We need to bring in the Department of Justice. They have a big role to play here, and I think it's important that we include them. We shouldn't be frightened of bringing in the Department of Justice in this. I think our sentiments really are very much in agreement with all the speakers, but let's use every method that we can to do something about this. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Hilary. Councillor Donnelly again. Gary, go ahead.
Chair, look, it's just more or less what I've already said. I'm just not sure of what changes in the law. Maybe somebody could enlighten me or tell me which law needs to be changed or how it currently stands. Do you know what I mean? Again, I won't support the amendment because, you know, I'm unsure of which law needs to be changed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that, Gary. That concludes all those that have indicated that they wish to speak on this amendment. So I'm going to go back to the Chief Executive just to take us through a vote on the amendment that Alderman Devaney has put forward. So, John, if you want to go through the voting record, please.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Alderman Breslin.
For.
Alderman Devaney.
For.
Alderman McClintock.
For.
Councillor John Boyle.
For.
Councillor Donnelly.
Abstain.
Councillor Doyle.
For.
Councillor Duffy.
For.
Councillor Farrell.
For.
Councillor Fleming.
For, John.
Councillor Heaney.
For.
Councillor McHugh.
For.
Councillor Mooney.
For.
Councillor Riley.
For.
Chair, I've recorded 12 for, no against, and 1 abstention. So the amendment passes.
Okay, thanks for that, John. Folks, I'm now going to move back to take the vote on the substantive motion, which has now been amended twice. So happy to allow people a moment to reflect on the substantive motion. If you wish to change your vote on the amendment, then so be it. But if not, I'll take it as the same voting pattern again, just in terms of time efficiency. So it was a vote taken there on the amendment. So are people content with the way they voted on the amendment? And if so, then we'll take it as the same numbers, or If you wish to change your vote, please indicate now. Okay, thank you, Councillor Donnelly. Content in the chat box. So members, I'm going to take that amended motion now as on the screen to be passed. So thank you for that. Members, moving back to the item under Chairperson's business that I raised in relation to the A5, Councillor McHugh indicated he wished to come in. I'm also alerted that the deputation has arrived, which is good to have. So we'll come to the deputation when we finish this item of Chairperson's business. So back to Councillor McHugh on the A5. Rory.
Thank you, Mayor. Just on behalf of myself and indeed my own party, Sinn Féin, I would like to be associated with your comments of sympathy towards the Corrigan, Finnegan and McNamee families who tragically, as we know, lost their lives on the A5, and also including that the family of young Aaron Harkin from Sion Mills, who also lost his life on the A5 on different stretch of the road prior to Christmas. There's absolutely no doubt that if the A5 had been upgraded, there's every chance that those young lives wouldn't be lost in such tragic circumstances. And I only wish that the people, individuals and groups that have opposed the upgrade of the A5 would only examine their conscience, because at the end of the day, as I said, those people would probably still be alive today if the A5 had been upgraded. And the sad thing about it is, until the A5 is upgraded, they probably won't be the last people to lose their lives on the A5. But as I say, Chair, we extend our sympathies to all those families. Thank you for allowing me in, Chair.
Yeah, no, thank you, Rory, for that. Members, that concludes Chairperson's business. So we're going to revert back now to item 5 in the agenda, which is the deputation. I'm reliably informed by Rachel that Angela and Mr. Humphreys are on the line, so I'm going to hand back over to Angela now to take us through the deputation, which has been circulated to us in advance. Angela.
Okay, Chair, thank you very much, and to the committee members for your invitation to provide the committee with a briefing on the progress with the revaluation 2023 to date. Just by way of introduction, my name is Angela McGrath. My official title is Commissioner of Valuation for Northern Ireland. I sit in Land and Property Services, and I have overall responsibility for the delivery of periodic revaluations of property for rates purposes in Northern Ireland. My colleague who's joining me today is Gary Humphrey, and Gary is the Reval 2023 Project Manager. I'm conscious that we have quite a tight timescale today, so we're just going to get straight into it, but I wanted to give you a bit of background as to how we arrived at this point. So as you'll be well aware, the valuations for rates on property, as you know, is one of the 3 main components of how rates are collected here in Northern Ireland. And you'll be aware that LPS published a revaluation of non-domestic property in April 2020. So the 2020 valuation list was based on valuation date and rental levels at the 1st of April 2018, which obviously precedes any impact on the rental markets that the pandemic and other economic factors may have had on property here. So Conor Murphy, the Minister of Finance, has been very mindful of all the issues that have been caused out there for businesses, etc., and the possible rental changes that have occurred as a result of all those economic changes that have happened since the last revaluation, and has brought forward a very quick non-domestic revaluation, which, when it comes into force, comes into effect in April 2023, will be only 3 years since the previous one in 2020, and it will reflect the rental values for non-domestic property at October 2021. So preparing the list itself brings with it challenges, not least of which is the shortened timescale within which LPS has to collect and analyse the rental and market evidence to produce the valuations. And we wanted to take the opportunity to brief the committee on where we have got to at this point in time, what the revaluation process is and the progress that we've made. So I'm going to hand over to Gary here, and he has a short few slides that will hopefully be informative to you, and we'll be very happy to take any questions that you may have at the end of the presentation. So Gary, do you want to fire up your presentation?
Thanks, Angela. Is it okay, Chair, if I share my slides?
Yeah, go ahead, Gary. Yeah, that's fine. If you need any assistance with IT on that, I'm sure they'll be able to provide it.
Hopefully I'll be okay, and hopefully my internet will hold up for the short presentation. So I thought it'd be useful. Thanks for the opportunity to speak, but I thought it'd be useful just to give you some background in terms of the rating system in Northern Ireland, why it stood the test of time, and also some information about Revolt 2023 and how the progress to date and what we've got planned for the future. The revaluation itself is all about rebalancing business rates. So this reval will only focus on commercial or non-domestic properties. There's about 74,500 commercial properties in Northern Ireland. The fundamental principle of any rating system is all about fairness and equality. It really is the oldest form of taxation, probably anywhere in the world. It traces its roots all the way back to ancient Egypt, and the current system that we have in Northern Ireland, believe it or not, actually is linked back to the aftermath of the Spanish Armada. The reason why governments tend to like rating systems is that it's pretty reliable and predictive. It's based on the valuation of property, so it's reasonably straightforward to count how many properties you have within a jurisdiction and then work out a tax system based on the amount of properties you have, and that makes it very hard to evade because obviously it's quite hard to hide a property, and it's also transparent. Even our own valuation list is online, so people can go and check to see how their property compares to similar properties within each locality. Of course, it has some disadvantages, and one of the disadvantages is that it's a fixed cost to the occupation of the business, and sometimes that can put people off occupying properties in particular areas. The rates liability itself can be quite significant, and the system requires experts in order to. We have an appeals system in place, so we require experts to look at complex valuation issues, and if we don't have enough experts, what happens is that the process essentially grinds to a halt or slows down quite dramatically. And whilst I put it in there as a disadvantage, that the need for regular revaluations, the disadvantage that I see is that the need for regular revaluations is obviously that we need more staff, so we need more resources. Since I joined LPS in 2004, we had 300 valuers when I started. We're now down to around 200 valuers. So what we need to do as an organisation is to work smarter and take advantage of any advances in technology that we have out there to do that. The rate system has a real global appeal. When I first started in the world of rating, there was only about 10 countries that didn't have a rate system, and that was places like Dubai and China. But even interestingly, last year, China has put in place a property tax system for domestic properties, and that's really in place to limit speculation in that country. So in terms of what is rateable, we operate based on the rates order 1977. So that's basically our primary piece of legislation. We look for a term, a thing that's called the hereditament. A hereditament is essentially a property that is liable to a rate or to taxation. But in order for you to have a hereditament, there needs to be 4 ingredients, and that's really actual exclusive beneficial occupation, and the occupation has to be for more than a short period of time, so it can't be a transient occupation. If you like the textbooks talk about transients, they'll give the example of a circus tent that moves into a town for say 6 weeks. That would be too transient, so that wouldn't satisfy the ingredients to be rateable. There's also a number of classes within the rates order which are not rateable, and that includes things like agricultural land, buildings, public parks. and cemeteries. So in terms of who does what for Reval 2023, we have LPS valuation, which is where I sit. I'm the senior valuer and I'm also the project manager for this. We assess the net annual values, or the NAVs, for properties, and we will produce and maintain the valuation list. The Department of Finance, they're above us, if you like, and they're responsible for the policy, rates relief, and also the regional rate poundage. And then we've got, likes of yourselves, the District Council set their own non-domestic district rate poundage. And then finally, we've got the revenue and benefit side of the business. They calculate the rates bills based on the NEB, and they also collect the money and redistribute the money back to the councils. You can see on the right-hand side of that slide, I've just included a brief basic example of the calculation of a rates liability. And it shows that the NEV is multiplied by a combination of the regional rate and the district rate to calculate the rates liability. And in that particular example, based on the NEV of 50,000, the rates liability would be about 29,400. In terms of rating, it's called what's called an ad valorem tax. So it's based on the value of something. And in this particular instance, it's based on the rental value of a property. And it's the occupier that is liable to the tax. If the property is not occupied, it falls back, generally speaking, onto the landlord or the owner. It's essentially the person entitled to the possession of the vacant property. And what we have found over successive numbers of years is that businesses have called for frequent revaluations. The benefit of a frequent revaluation is that it allows us to take account of those changes that Angela was mentioning between two valuation dates. It essentially brings the system up to a more current time frame. And by going forward for this Revolt 2023, this is the fastest time that we've ever done. So we've got less time to do what we have done in the past. But it will put us on a 3-year revaluation cycle. And ideally, in the short to medium term, what it will do is it will start to limit any big shocks or changes in valuations that people may have experienced in the past. In terms of the task that we have in hand, we've got the 74,500 non-domestic properties, and that includes all business properties, basically anything that you could think of, any, likes of pubs, airports, docks, railway stations, hotels, it's all in there. The business rates themselves, they yield around 675 million per annum. They make a vital contribution to our critical frontline services. So it's everything from hospitals and locally in districts for leisure, tourism, waste management, etc. You can see there on the pie chart just that Derry and Strabane make up 7% of the total amount of non-domestic hard elements in Northern Ireland. In terms of our Revolt Key Messages, the regular revaluations are essential to maintain the fairness and equality amongst ratepayers. The revaluation itself is a revenue neutral exercise, so it's not designed to to increase the amount of revenue or decrease the total amount of revenue collected. What it does, it redistributes the burden based on the changes in rental patterns that have occurred between the two valuation dates, and ensures that basically the business rate stays up to date and allows valuers to take account of local economic changes and relative changes that have occurred between the two valuation dates. A hypothetical landlord and tenant agreeing a rent at a fixed point in time. So it's only the known factors that will be known by those two parties at that fixed point in time that can be taken into consideration. So by carrying out another revaluation, then we're allowed to take account of the changes that have occurred that we wouldn't have been unless we did a revaluation. Our key dates this time around, 1st October is our valuation date. In around that time, we started, because we're looking for rental values, we issued letters to all non-domestic properties in Northern Ireland, asking them to give us evidence of their rents. And in some instances, we asked for trading information for the likes of pubs and hotels. And that's really because their rents are influenced by their ability to generate income. The information supplied is going to be used to produce a new valuation list.
we have a deadline, or had a deadline of the 31st of December 2021, but to be quite honest with you, that's a soft deadline. We're just conscious of the need to get the information into us as quickly as possible because we're in such a tight time frame. We will not turn away good evidence, and therefore, so if you have any constituents or any of the people on the call have businesses and maybe you haven't completed a RUG, there is still the opportunity to do so, and we would very much welcome that information to come through. But by the 1st of January next year, we hope to be in a position, if not earlier, to publish a draft schedule of values, and that will allow people to see the impact that Revolt 2023 has had on their valuation. At that point in time, they can put in an informal review if they wish to challenge, or they think there's something that we haven't taken account of. We will look at it. And by the 1st of April 2023, the new values will be used. That's when the new valuation list takes effect, and they'll be used to create the rate spills. And at that point in time, the normal application and appeal route kicks in. So you can put an application into your district valuer at any point in time if you think that your valuation is inaccurate. And even if you're still dissatisfied with the decision the district valuer makes, you can appeal to the commissioner valuation. And if you're still remain dissatisfied after that, you can appeal further to the Lands Tribunal if that's appropriate. For this reval, I talked about trying to work smarter. We created we call them a RUC, a rent and lease questionnaire. And we tried to use as much technology as possible. It's also going to benefit us, obviously, if we are going to go forward and have more frequent revaluations. But a RUC is essentially the opportunity for a ratepayer to have their say by telling us, what has been the impact on their rent due to COVID and any other factors that have occurred over the past couple of years. And it will ensure that whenever the valuations take effect, that their rates assessments are accurate and fair. The majority of properties can complete their RUC information online. We've actually had a reasonably good response rate. And for the RUCs themselves, it's a fairly common form. We designed it's called government design system. It's used quite frequently throughout government departments, and it'll be very familiar to anybody, looking at an MOT test. And most of the feedback that we've received so far has been fairly positive on the form. I thought you'd be interested to see some of the stats for your own district. So whenever I obviously created the slides for you, basically it's a bit more up to date. So there has been some movement over the past couple of weeks. We now, in terms of bulk shops, the number of RUCs that we have received or have been completed is 1,627. We've had 9 filling stations, 28 pubs, 2 hotels, and 16 B&Bs. Overall, it's not too bad. I mean, there's always going to be a number of properties within each district that are vacant, or some are owner-occupied and feel that they don't need to complete the full RUCs. So the response rate has been reasonably positive. It remains to be seen that we have to analyse it and see how useful the evidence is in terms of how close it is to our statutory valuation date, and also does it align with what's called the rating hypothesis. Is it on the same terms? Things like, is it an open market letting? Is it between 2 unconnected parties and things like that? In terms of further information for Revolt 2023, we have obviously updated our website. We've got quite a lot of responses to frequently asked questions on there. We've also got some hopefully useful videos. One of the things we did do, and it's really in case any of your constituents or any of yourselves have any follow-up, is we created an online contact form called Tell Us. We're very conscious that we're all working from home, and getting through to some government departments at the best of times can be difficult. So the Tell Us system was designed really to make that a bit more straightforward. And I can tell you, as of today, we're back. We're responding within 24 hours, and generally speaking, we're getting the ratepayers the information that they need at that point in time. So if you do have any follow-up questions after today's meeting, feel free to get in touch that way, or via the NI Reval email. And that's everything that I have to say. Thank you very much for listening, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Okay, Gary, thank you for that. And thank you, Angela, as well for your contribution at the start. Folks, happy to open it out to the floor if any members or indeed any officers have any questions that they want to put to Gary or Angela. Now's your chance. It's useful to have the presentation here this afternoon and to have received it in advance as well for people to go through and interrogate, and I'm sure we all look forward to learning the outcome of it next year when it's published again, in terms of the impact that it'll have. I'm not seeing any questions coming in at this stage. So there's Alderman Devaney. Go ahead, Morris.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in, and I thank Angela and Gary for coming with the presentation. As we all know, rates can be a hot potato sometimes, but I do believe they've brought forward a very, very good presentation here and their dealings with how to evaluate the rates and stuff like that there. And I do believe it's right, you know, the evaluation was to be 1st October 2021, and we all know through the results of COVID this last couple of years, there have been a very serious difficulty within the business community. But it's good to hear from Angela and Gary here that there's that flexibility and around there, because I know many owners of businesses are worried about the future and how they move forward. And it's good that there's that bit of flexibility, because as we know, many businesses have been closed for quite a huge part of the last couple of years. And look, a lot of staff were on furlough, and a lot of businesses closed, and it's good to see that there's that flexibility even yet, although the date has passed, that businesses can discuss their issues and around rates. And it's good to hear that departments now, that contact with departments is getting better as we move on, because I know for ourselves as public representatives, getting departments' answers back has always been long and difficult, but it's good to hear that. But I have no questions, Chair, just to say thanks for the presentation and look forward to the results as they come. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Morris. Councillor Mooney, Sean.
Chair, thank you very much. I'd just like to thank Angela and Gary for coming and presenting us today. Obviously, we have to wait until this time next year to get the results in, or the draft schedule to be published. That'll give us information that we probably really require to see where we stand in relation to the non-domestic rate situation. But I think Alderman Devaney sort of asked the question I did just previous there about the rent and lease questionnaires have finished there on the 31st of December. But is there a facility for any members of the public to submit that after that deadline? As really what I'm asking, is that a hard and fast deadline? Essentially, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that. Councillor Duffy, Sandra.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, no question here either. Just to thank Angela and Gary for the presentation. It was actually really informative and I enjoyed it. So thank you for that. And it was good to see in the presentation how the Minister, Conor Murphy, has been very mindful of the issues and challenges that have faced businesses, particularly throughout the pandemic and now in these current economic circumstances that we're facing, and has moved and listened to the businesses and establishing the quicker turnaround and the more regular evaluation. So it's good to see that all that has been taken on board, and I just want to thank you for the presentation. So thanks.
Okay, thank you, Sandra. Angela and Gary, there doesn't seem to be any other questions coming forward, so I'm happy to go back to yourselves if there's any additional points that you just want to make now in relation to what the elected members have said.
Chair, I think there was a question from Councillor Mooney, was just asking whether or not there's still time for ratepayers to submit their rent and lease questionnaires, and I think Gary already covered that to say, although we did have a deadline of 31st of December, we're trying to get as much information in as possible by the 31st of December, but we are not going to turn away any rent and lease questionnaire information that ratepayers may still have sitting partially completed in the online form. So yes, we will continue to receive the returns from ratepayers over the coming months, but obviously the earlier we get the information the better, because we're going through the evaluation process now, the analysis of that information now, and it does take a long period of time to get through all that analysis of the information that has come in and apply that to the valuations that we're going to be putting in place. So the earlier we get the information, the better, but we're not going to turn anything away. So there is still time.
Yep, thank you for that, Angela, and Councillor Mooney's acknowledged that in the chat box as well. Folks, thanks very much for that. Gary and Angela, you're both very welcome to log on to YouTube and watch the rest of our proceedings if you wish. But if you are able to log out of the WebEx portal now, that would be appreciated. And again, thank you on behalf of the committee for coming along this afternoon with the presentation. And members, that moves us on to item 7 of today's agenda, which is the minutes of the previous meeting. So I'm going to take them first of all for accuracy. If people have any point of accuracy, then please raise them now. And if not, can I have a proposal for accuracy, please?
I proposed Alderman Devaney, or seconded. I'd second it. Alderman Bresnan has.
Yeah, thank you for that, Alderman Bresnan proposing and Alderman Devaney seconding for accuracy. Any matters arising that people wish to raise? I am aware that there's one item we need to raise just in relation to when we discuss Foyle Port. The minute indicates that there was a letter to be sent in relation to the strike that was taking place at Foyle Port, but the strike was ended prior to full council. So the letter in relation to the strike hasn't gone because of that. So I'm just checking with the committee if the committee are content that no letter has been sent because the strike ended before full council signed off the proposal from Governance and Strategic Planning Committee. If anybody wants to raise that, and if not, we'll note that the correspondence was not required and therefore wasn't sent. Okay, I'm not seeing anyone coming in on the chat box in relation to that. Any other matters arising that people have? Again, I'm not seeing any indication in the chat box anybody wishes to come in, so I'm going to move on to item 8, which is the All Ireland Strategic Rail Review Consultation. I'm not sure who's taking this from the officer team. Is it Rachel?
Yep, Chair, thank you.
Go ahead, Rachel.
The purpose of this report is to update members of the Governance and Strategic Planning Committee on the All Ireland Strategic Rail Review Consultation. As members will be aware, on the 29th of November, the Northern Ireland Executive Minister for Infrastructure and the Republic of Ireland's Minister for Transport jointly published the consultation on the All Ireland Rail Review. The purpose of the Strategic Rail Review is to review the rail network to improve sustainable connectivity between the major cities, enhance regional accessibility, support balanced regional development, and consider rail connectivity to international gateways such as sea and airports, and which will include the examining the role of rail freight. A RIP, the consultant team, have been appointed to work with the steering group to carry out this review. And as part of this, a consultation document has been launched, and it's attached at Appendix 1 in your report for members' consideration. In the document, it says that the review aims to be data-driven, and it will be delivered over 3 phases, and it has 6 goals with supporting objectives aligned to the goals. Members, as you're aware, following a recommendation of this committee, a working group of elected members was duly convened on the 2nd of December to consider strategic rail connectivity. The draft terms of reference for the working group and the draft notes and actions arising from this meeting are attached to Appendix 2. It was agreed at that meeting that the consultants commissioned to lead on the strategic rail review will be invited to meet with the elected members working group, and an online meeting with the consultants has now been confirmed for the 13th of January. Members also agreed that a draft consultation response would be drafted in advance of this meeting in order to inform discussion. So members, a draft consultation response is currently being prepared for the elected members working group for members' initial consideration and feedback. And members are advised that responses to this consultation are invited until the 29th of January, the end of this month. So the draft consultation response will be submitted by the state and subject to any additional members' views at our next Governance and Strategic Planning Committee meeting in February. So, Chair, the recommendation in front of you today is that members note this update on the strategic rail consultation, endorse the draft terms of reference attached at Appendix 2, and the progress made to date in preparing a corporate consultation response on behalf of Derry City and Strabane District Council for the strategic rail review. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Rachel, thank you for that, and thanks to yourself and the officer team for working on this, quite diligently over a very pressurized space of time to get this progressed and ready for submission towards the end of this month. So I, along with others, attended the initial meeting of the working group, and there's clearly a lot of work that needs done. So just to put on record, thanks to officers for doing that over the busy Christmas period. Happy to go to the chat box. First indicated speaker is Councillor Heaney. Go ahead, Connor.
Thanks, Chair. I suppose just to say, well, like, it's obviously welcome to see movement and progress on the All Ireland Rail Review. It's good that this council is going to be making a submission to it. It'll be an important piece of work, and something that we need to make sure our voice is heard in this. It's clear there's been a huge deficit in rail provision in the northwest of Ireland and the west generally for a long time now, and this is going to be a long-term process, so I look forward that there will be further progress in this in the next mandate as this review is taken forward. Obviously, this is just a first step, and whoever the infrastructure minister is in the next mandate, we need to see this taken on. It also shows the potential of the sort of all-Ireland approach to our infrastructure and how this needs to be done. Like, the current Irish government is facing in the right direction, but we need future Irish governments to, put their money where their mouth is and move this whole project forward and trying to address the historic imbalances that this part of the island has faced for a long time. I suppose the consultation document and reading it it's largely sort of a statement of where we currently are at. I personally would have preferred that it went a bit further and made specific recommendations that people could give their views on, for or against, but it's progress regardless. So that said, it's a step forward and it's to be welcomed, and look forward to seeing the submission that's been prepared at the moment. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Connor. Councillor Mooney, go ahead, Sean.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Rachel for bringing the report. And like yourself, I attended the working group on the 2nd of December there past, and there was a lot of contributions from those who attended the meeting. And but really, I think where we are at the minute now, I'm happy to endorse the recommendations in the item, and really we're waiting on now is for the submission and the content of it, and hopefully we'll have it within some time prior to the 13th, because it will be an important meeting to have the document, because we will be obviously discussing this with ARAP, who are the consultants in relation to this important review. But happy so far, Chair, and happy with the recommendations, and as I say already, look forward to seeing the submission of the document. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Mooney. Alderman McClintock, go ahead, Hilary.
Thank you, Chair, and I was on that working group as well, and thanks to Rachel for taking forward all the suggestions that came up at that meeting. It was certainly a very interesting and very informative discussion at the working group, and I think it shows that there's a lot of work to do to address the imbalance on the whole west of the island, north and south. I look forward to the meeting with the consultants coming up later in the month, and I'm not sure, I think maybe Sean proposed or whatever, if we need a seconder, happy to do that, of the recommendations by Rachel, and thank you for all your hard work, Rachel.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I think all the speakers have indicated that they're content with the recommendation. So if you're willing to second it, I'm sure Connor or Sean are happy enough to propose it. If you just want to confirm that in the chat box. Yeah, thanks, Councillor Mooney. Okay, members, no other indicated speakers on that, so we're going to move on then to the next item, which is item 9, the 6-monthly progress report. Handing over to Ellen. Go ahead, Ellen.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The purpose of this report is to advise members of the progress report in terms of the strategic planning and support units, and also to seek members' comments and endorsement. As outlined in the report, the Council operates within a planning, improvement and performance review framework, of which this particular 6th monthly report is part of. The background information also makes reference to the fact that this is a progress report in relation to the delivery plan, which was approved by this committee on the 30th of March. In terms of the key issues, the report presented at Appendix 2 provides an overview of progress against that strategic planning and support units delivery plan for the first 6 months of this financial year, namely the period April to September 21. The report itself indicates that at the end of September, despite the ongoing and dynamic implications of COVID-19, target progress was almost in line with expectations, with an overall delivery of 46% against the actions identified. Work is ongoing in terms of the completion of the outstanding activities and objectives identified, and the recommendation in front of members today is that, subject to your comments, the 6th monthly progress report is endorsed. Thank you, members.
Yeah, thanks very much for that, Ellen. Again, happy to open it up to the virtual chamber. Any comments in relation to this? And if not, can I have a proposer and seconder for it, please?
I'll propose Alderman Devaney.
Thanks, Morris. Your seconder, please.
I'll second Martin Councillor Fleming.
Okay, thank you for that, Paul. Okay, thank you very much for that, Ellen. Item 10 is the Languages Progress Report 2020-2021.
Again, through you, Chair, this report aims to provide members with an overview of projects and initiatives which have been undertaken to promote the languages of Irish and Ulster Scots in the 2020-21 period, and also to seek members' endorsement of the approach undertaken. As you can see from the background information, this report provides an annual update in terms of the position with regard to the promotion of the languages, and again notes that despite the challenges of the pandemic, the impact of public health restrictions on event programming, the Council has continued to engage with audiences using a range of creative and digital approaches to promote the use of Irish and Ulster Scots in public life. It's also noted that from the learning this year, we probably will go forward in the short term, at least, with both live and virtual events, so as to enhance the accessibility and reach of our activities. In terms of the key issues I would highlight to you is that in order to meet our obligations under the Charter for Regional or Minority Languages, there was a range of events, projects and initiatives undertaken, and the report identifies in the appendix a number of the initiatives which were taken forward under the headings identified in paragraph 3.3. Again, as I say, the recommendations from front of members today is that members note the positive progress made to date, and that members also endorse the approach undertaken. Thank you, members.
Again, thank you, Ellen, for that. Again, happy to go to the chat box, or if there's no indicated speakers, can I have a proposer and seconder for the report, please?
I'll propose it.
Is that Alderman Breslin? Thank you for
Yeah,
that. Is
yes.
there a seconder, please?
I'll be second, Chair.
Councillor Mooney. Thank you, Sean. Okay, thank you, Ellen, for those two reports. Item 11 is the update on the progress for signing up to the British Sign Language and the Irish Sign Language Charter. Back to you, Ellen.
Yeah, through you, Chair. Again, this is an update report on Council signing up to the British Irish Sign Language Charter. And again, further to the motion that was passed at Council, there have been two previous reports in September 19 and on May 2021, updating members in terms of progress, and obviously in this particular area and engaging with the deaf community, COVID has presented with some difficulties. In terms of the key issues, where we're at the moment is in terms of progressing the charter itself. It's noted there are 2 phases. Firstly, the audit and preparation for signing, and secondly, staff interviews and final report. At the present time, we're currently progressing Part A, and it's fairly well progressed, and that there had been initially 2 engagement events set up specifically with the deaf community via the British Deaf Association, who actually manage the charter. The first event was held on 16th November, and a number of key issues which were raised were identified at 3.3. The second one, as I say, the BDA had problems in actually getting engagement, and we are trying to reschedule for the end of actually December. On a positive note as well there, the actual charter itself, the BDA were happy enough that we had done sufficient activity there to award the charter, and the signing took place there on the 1st of December. But clearly there's more work to be done in terms of the identification of our particular action plan. In terms of the recommendations from the members, it's recommended that members note the content in the report and again endorse the approach to date. Thank you, members.
Okay, again, thank you, Ellen, for talking us through that item. Not seeing any activity in the chat box in relation to it. So
proposed, Alderman Devaney.
Thank you, Morris. A seconder, please.
Seconded, Chair.
Thank you, Connor, for that. Thank you, Ellen, for those reports. The next item is item 12, which is the Northern Ireland Charter Plus for Councillor Development.
Yeah, through you, Chair, again, this report advises members of the outcome of the assessment process against the Northern Ireland Councillor Development Charter Plus Award, and to advise members of the suggested areas of improvement to be progressed, which were identified through that process, and to seek members' endorsement for those proposals. Again, in terms of background, the report notes that this council was the first council to achieve Charter Plus Award in Northern Ireland, and that was back in April 2018. And then on the 12th of November, the council was reassessed again against the framework and were successful in retaining the award. And at Appendix 1, as I say, for members' information, is the assessment report. Clearly, the assessment team provided this extremely positive report, acknowledging the work and contribution of members, and identified the following strengths of council, namely a strong level of political commitment to councillor development, a strategic approach to councillor development, and that learning and development for members is effective in building skills and knowledge. In particular, they noted that council should continue to commit to its well-established personal development planning process, and also that the member development group should develop its processes to support partner involvement and engagement in member development, further develop e-learning for members, and develop and lead on an internal mentoring programme in preparation for the newly elected council in 2023. The award itself is to be formally presented to council on the 25th of January 2022 at 2 p.m. and arrangements are being put in place to finalise that. The recommendations in front of members is to note the outcome of the assessment against the Northern Ireland Councillor Development Charter Plus Award, and to endorse the commitment to progress the suggested areas of improvement. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Ellen, for that. And in one indicated speaker at this stage, Councillor John Boyle. Go ahead, John.
Thank you again, Chair. Thanks, Martin. And Ellen, thanks for bringing the report forward. Obviously, as speaking as Chair of the Member Development Working Group, I would just like to place on record, on behalf of all members of this council, our thanks to Ellen Kavanagh, Sharon Maxwell and Karen Henderson for their continued assistance and advice in relation to member development and all of the things that we benefit from in terms of improving skills and knowledge. And again, to thank all of those elected members who engaged with the assessment process. There were quite a number of our elected members from right across the board who who contributed, and their input was invaluable. And just to also remark, Chair, that this council was the first out of all of the 11 councils to achieve the Charter Plus, and by virtue of that fact, actually, we were the first then to be reassessed, and so therefore we are the first to have been successful in our reapplication for Charter Plus recognition. So a significant amount of work, time and commitment has gone in from officers, and just to again put in record on behalf of everybody, on behalf of the member working group as well, our thanks to the 3 named officers, and again, long may this level of success continue, and indeed note that the Charter Plus will be presented to the council at the end of the month, and I'm sure any members that would wish to attend that, Ellen, given
Are you home yet?
obviously in relation to the advice we might have around COVID, Ellen, any members that might wish to attend would be more than welcome to do so.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Boyle.
No, a couple of times.
There's somebody with their mic on. I think it's maybe Alderman Breslin. If you could turn your mic off, please, Alderman Breslin. Next indicated speaker is Alderman Devaney Morris. Go ahead, Morris.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me in, and thank Ellen for bringing forward the report. And like the previous speaker, I'd like to thank Ellen and the officer team in the delivery of this, and all those involved in the working group. And as the previous speaker said, we're the first to achieve it, and we have been reviewed now again, and we're going to receive it again. And I would just like to put on record the DEP's congratulations to everyone who have put their shoulder behind the wheel in this one, and well done, Ellen and the team. And I'm happy to propose, Chair, if it needs one.
Yeah, just for the record, I suppose, yeah, happy to propose it, Alderman Devaney. Councillor Boyle, I know you were speaking, the audio seemed to drop off at the end, so
No, that's fine, that's grand, I second it, sure. Thanks.
that's grand. Okay, members, thank you. That's been proposed and seconded, and as chair, just to also be associated with the words of congratulations to the officers involved for the dedication and the time that they invested in this item, and to thank them for it. Members, moving on to the next item then is item 13, which is the Improvement Audit and Assessment Report 2020-2021.
And through you, Chair, this report advises members of and seeks endorsement for the outcome of the improvement audit and assessment for 2021, which was carried out by the Northern Ireland Local Government Auditor. Again, as indicated in the report, Part 12 of the Local Government Act 2014 sets out that all councils are under a general duty to make arrangements to secure improvement in the exercise of their functions. And each year also the local government auditor has to report on whether each council has discharged these duties in relation to improvement planning, the publication and publication of improvement information, and also to the extent to which each council has acted in accordance with the Department for Communities guidance. Also, the auditor would look at annually whether the council is likely to make the required arrangements to secure continuous improvement in that year, and that's through the improvement assessment. Members would again note that, again, as highlighted in the report, that because of COVID, councils were not required to publish an improvement plan for that particular year, 2021, and therefore no audit could be undertaken. In overall terms, the key issues are that the local government auditor has certified the performance arrangements for 2021 with an unqualified audit opinion without modification, and confirms that the improvement audit and improvement assessment have been conducted. Also during the audit, the Northern Ireland Audit Office did not identify any issues requiring formal recommendation, nor were there any proposals for improvement. In terms of recommendations in front of members, the recommendation is that members consider and endorse the outcome of the assessment, and that was carried out by the local government auditor. Thank you again, members. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Ellen, again for that. Being proposed in the chat box by Alderman Devaney. I'm happy to seek a seconder.
I'll second that, Chair.
Thanks, Sean. Councillor Mooney. Members, no other indicated speakers, so thank you, Ellen, for that report also. And that moves us on to item 14, which is open for information, the Northern Ireland Housing Council update. Unless anybody wishes to speak to that, we'll take that as read. I'll give it a moment. I'm not seeing anyone come in. So members, that concludes the business in open part of today's agenda. So I'm going to wait for IT to indicate that we have switched off the live stream, and then we'll move into the confidential business.